Botswana, while Zone D is from the School of Social Sciences, University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. Thank you very much, convener. And my topic is focused on, or our topic is focused on insecurity of the displaced people in the wake of the extremists in Nigeria. Of course, we are all aware that, or for those who are not aware, the issue of extremism is almost 2 decades in Nigeria now, that so-called the Boko Haram has been fighting the government for so many reasons, for so many factors. But of course, this presentation is focusing primarily on the so-called the protection of the displaced people being displaced by the terrorist activities in the northeast of Nigeria. Now, let's start by looking at displacement. What exactly is displacement? We're talking about people who have been forcefully out of their homes for various reasons, such as flood, droughts, natural disaster. But in recent time, we have seen conflict, or even prior to recent time, we have seen conflict leading to displacement in not only in Nigeria, but globally. Now, global displacement has been on the increase, and that has been on the concern of so-called the world leaders. But I said that approximately we say about 6.3 million people around the world have been forcefully displaced. That, of course, is an information from the IDMC 2021 information. And we said about 2.1 million of the 6.5 million are refugees, with over half of the figures being children under the age of 18, and 0.54% of the refugees worldwide emanated from many countries in Africa and across the world, countries like Somalia, look at Afghanistan, talking about Syria, and so on and so forth. Now, when you look at displacement in Africa, of course, it's been prominently on the issue of conflict. It's been driven by conflict, in as much as we have disaster-driven displacement, but oftentimes is attributed to the issue of conflict. In Nigeria, over 2.9 million people have been internally displaced, particularly in the northeast of Nigeria, where the Boko Haram, of course, operate. Again, we should understand that we have a region called the Lake Chad region, and this region, of course, is made up of 4 countries, or that 4 countries share the so-called the Lake Chad basin, country like Cameroon, Chad, and Niger. We discovered that this number of displacement in Nigeria surpasses the 3 other countries combined. So when you look at Cameroon, Chad, and Niger, the number of people displaced, about 684, of course, is minimal compared to where you have about 2.5 million, 2.9 million people being displaced in the case of Nigeria. And this, of course, this figure is coming from Nigeria National Emergency Management Agency, the people who call NEMA. And the agency, of course, is meant to manage the affairs of so-called the displaced people. But when you look at the activities of the agency in the recent time, they have, of course, been operating below what, of course, they are meant to achieve, below the expectation of so-called the government and that of the agency. So it's what that the agency, of course, beside the fact that they like so-called the fund and probably full support, or let me say, of the government to actually perform their operation in terms of protecting the refugee, discover that the state itself is also a problem, because the state, in as much as they believe that the international law does not, the international framework, the legal framework, of course, is not there to compel them to actually operate and act as a body that, of course, will protect the refugee. So they, of course, the so-called refugee, displaced people, they are at the mercy of the state and that of so-called the NEMA, as in the case of Nigeria. And with that said, it has left a lot of so-called displaced people in the northeast of Nigeria to security challenges, issues like rape, issues like being threatened by the so-called the terrorist group, and even the Nigerian security agent themselves, because we have seen a situation whereby the Nigerian security, the popularly known so-called the special task force, that of course is meant to counter the Boko Haram or so-called the terrorist group, they have on several occasions attacked and bombed the so-called the IDP camps. And beside that, we have seen a situation whereby the The IDPs are, of course, not accessible to good health care, food and education, and so on and so forth. These are some of the challenges faced by the IDP, and that, of course, we therefore prove that to what extent is this state actually capable to protect and guarantee the security of the so-called the IDP. When you look at the situation of bombing of the so-called IDP plan, we had the first bombing of the IDP camp, the second bombing, and the third bombing in recent time. But all, of course, have been laid to mistake by the so-called the special task force that, of course, is meant to protect the IDP camp. Now, that said, it's called that beside the fact that we lack the international legal framework to compel the state to act as a protector of the so-called the IDP, this IDP, they are at the mercy of the state as it operates in the case of Nigeria, particularly in the northeast of Nigeria. Now, when this study, of course, is actually relying totally on the review of existing framework, and it's an ongoing study, probably with time, maybe probably be able to carry out a primary approach to this study by trying to interview some of the so-called displaced people, the staff of the National Emergency Management Agency, and those that work with the government in charge of so-called the displaced people, to add more substance to the study itself. But as it is, the study, of course, relies much, of course, on the existing literature, and where we have some quantitative data in the study is not, of course, an attempt to actually triangulate, but is to further substantiate the statistics presented in the study, and to make the study much, of course, reliable to our readers. Now, looking at the issue of security challenges of the displaced people, grappling with the reality, as in the case of IDP in Nigeria, we discover that the present IDP in Nigeria and challenges they are facing can be likened to what, of course, operates in other parts of Africa, like in the case of Kenya, Uganda, Sudan, and so on and so forth. And we all know that one of the largest camps in Africa, of course, is situated in Kenya. So the issue of Nigeria, of course, is not something new, but it can be likened to other issues around Africa where we have the IDPs. But looking at the idea of vulnerability, the nature of vulnerability, and the attitude of the government is oftentimes reactive and not proactive. That shows that the insecurity of displaced people is not being taken serious by the government. And beside that, when you look at the so-called the international legal framework, we don't have the international legal framework as in the case of the refugees. So the IDP lack the so-called the international legal framework, which of course I consider as a gap in the international law. So this popular or the common framework, or what I may call the protection, or probably the policy, they are all regional policies and framework. For example, the so-called the Kampala Convention. And these are some of those regional framework or continental framework that actually, of course, meant to protect and guide the security of the so-called displaced people. But in Africa, in as much as many countries have ratified this framework, some are yet to ratify. And Nigeria, of course, is one of those countries that is yet to ratify the framework. And for those that have ratified, the implementation of the framework is still very weak. And that, of course, opens up the idea of the so-called the insecurity of the so-called the displaced people in Nigeria and probably in other parts of the country. But this study, of course, focuses on Nigeria. Then the funding of the agency itself, the NEMA itself, is not properly funded as it should be. And that, of course, undermines their operation as an authorized governmental body, meant, of course, to actually protect the refugees within their enclave. Now, the acts of Boko Haram, as it is in Nigeria, has also affected the so-called the community, the environment where we have so-called the displaced camp. And that put much pressure on the community that actually host the displaced camp of the displaced people. Now, in all that said, we discovered that the refugees, they are not internationally protected. They are at the mercy of the states. The state is not capable, as it is right now, to protect the refugee in Nigeria. The agency meant to operate as an authority to guarantee the protection of the state, of the refugees. They are performing below expectation. Now, this, of course, are some of the challenges of the internally displaced people in Nigeria. Now, we propose some recommendation if they can actually be achieved, but to some extent, I think they should be achieved by the government, and not just by the government, but everybody concerned, including the international organization like the UN. Now, we urgently propose that the international legal framework, as in the case of refugee, should equally be in operation to protect the internally displaced people. And not just that, there should be what we call a criminal justice system that, of course, could give the so-called internally displaced people who have been affected in one way or the other. Take, for example, the issue of rape, the raping of the people in the camp. Those people, they, of course, they do not seek justice. But we are saying that there should be a criminal justice system to actually support the quick justice of the so-called affected rape or victims of the rape living in the internally displaced camp. And not just that, we equally propose that the governments, as it were, should strengthen their authority that is meant, of course, to guarantee the security of the displaced people. Take, for example, the National Emergency Management Agency. They should be properly funded, and they should proactively act and not reactively act. By proactively act, of course, it will go a long way to protect the internally displaced people. And other agencies such as the Red Cross and the so-called non-governmental agency and the emergency relief coordinators, they should all come together and operate and coordinate their activities, try to ensure that they guarantee the protection of the internally displaced people. Now, as it were, we conclude by saying that Nigeria should sincerely ensure that the resources of the state should not only be channeled, or should not be channeled only to the issue of counterterrorism, but they should also take the issue of refugee security into consideration. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I use this opportunity to actually apologize. My co-presenter is having an internet problem. She's probably not able to be part of this presentation, but she's listening, but she cannot present because of the internet problem. But that's I say good evening this side, and thank you for being a good audience. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Stanley. Very interesting. It's really interesting to draw some parallels between, what we see in major disasters and then how that affects conflict and the movement of populations, and, sort of the long-term issues that we see in terms of displaced populations is becoming more and more of an issue. So thank you very much for your presentation. If anybody has any questions or anything else like that, you can put those in the Q&A. All right, so right on time. So next we have Ruben. And one second, let me find Ruben here, who I do not see. Marilyn is here since we don't see Ruben. Okay, great. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing, and then I'll turn it over to you, Marilyn. Thanks for joining us, and I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Kyle. Good morning from the Philippines. Time check in my country is 2:30 in the morning. And to all the participants physically present at Atlanta, Georgia, a pleasant afternoon to all of you. But first of all, I would like to express deep gratitude to TIEMS, especially to Dr. Harold, for this chance to present an academic study which I have completed as a requirement for the course Master in Public Safety Administration. This study is entitled The Influence of Mental Health on the Psychological Resilience of Public Safety Officers. This study is anchored on various legal bases. First is the Ambition Natin 2030 2040, which embodies the goals of every Filipino to enjoy a strongly rooted, comfortable, and secure life by 2040. So this entails that Filipinos should be healthy and resilient. Another legal basis is Republic Act 11036, which is also known as Mental Health Act, enacted on June 2018, which ensures the basic right of Filipinos to psychological health. It mandates the integration of mental health care in the basic health services and strategies that promote mental health in educational institutions, the workplace, and the communities. RA 9258, or the Counselors Act of 2004, professionalizes the practice of guidance and counseling in the country, and RE Republic Act 129, better known as Philippine Psychology Act of 2009, regulates the practice of psychology, and this sets the minimum qualifications of mental health practitioners. Also, in the a legal basis is BFP Operational Procedures Manual that is dated August 2018. This specifies the procedures and guidelines to be undertaken in responding to fire, emergencies, and disasters. It ensures that the physical and mental conditions of personnel operating at the scene of an emergency or training exercise do not deteriorate to a point that affects the safety of its crew member or jeopardizes the safety and integrity of the operation. So, put it simply, the Filipino aspires to live a safe, secure, and progressive life. So this aspiration is promoted in the sustainable goal of the Philippines expressed in the Ambition Natin 2040, which embodies the goal of every Filipino to enjoy a strongly rooted, comfortable, and secure life. So this is attained by having a resilient society. A resilient society is possible when there is a resilient public safety, and hence, the goal is to create a healthy public safety. To achieve a healthy public safety, we need healthy individuals. Hence, the goal of this study is to propose the creation of psychological resilience unit and to propose mental health service program for public safety officers. The study aims to determine the influence of stress and mental health on the psychological resilience of public safety officers. Specifically, it aims to determine the level of stress, mental health, and psychological resilience among public safety officers, specifically during the pandemic period. This study intends to lay down the grounds at which public safety agencies can consider institutionalizing mental health care services for their personnel in response to the needs of the time and in compliance with the provisions of Mental Health Act of the Philippines. It intends to provide baseline data that can be used as a reference in the design of policies and programs to promote psychological resilience among public safety officers. As its recommendations, it proposed the creation of a psychological resilience unit within the public safety agencies to address the need for improved resilience among personnel, as they are among the occupations that are highly exposed to individual, occupational, and organizational stress. It further proposed the formulation and adoption of a comprehensive mental health service program for implementation of the psychological resilience unit to promote mental health and psychological resilience among the personnel of the public safety agencies. This study is anchored on the resilience theory of Martin Seligman, which advocates the principles that individuals tend to bounce back from every adversity, failure, or frustration, and they tend to positively adopt and become more resilient after the experience. This theory emphasizes the importance of how people deal with adversaries or disruptions, no matter what these are. It recognizes that stress and negative experiences or life events trigger mental illness and that the ability to deal with the stressors would lead to mental health. Resilience theory, in summary, views resilience as a process of adapting to stressful situations. In this study, the researchers focus on three variables: stress as a determining factor to mental health, and mental health as a determining factor to psychological resilience. The study was completed utilizing the mixed method research design, and sampling technique used was purposive random sampling. Data were gathered through survey, utilizing the Google Forms, and details were completed through focus group, small group focus discussions. Data gathered were analyzed utilizing the linear regression, and the research instruments used were the perceived stress scale developed by Cohen in 1983. This was used to measure individuals' level of stress by indicating how the person felt during the last month period. Brief resilience scale developed by Smith and others in 2003 was used to assess a person's ability to bounce back and recover from stress. World Health Organization 5, the Well-Being Index, was used to assess the subjective psychological well-being of the respondents. So at this point, I would like to give the highest credit to the developers and owners of these research instruments. Before presenting the findings of the study, I would like to present a profile of the respondents in terms of gender. 75% of the respondents were female and 25% of them were male. So remarkably, there is a greater number of female respondents. In terms of area of assignment, 33% are assigned at the National Capital Region, while 42% were assigned at the Region 4A. 25% are assigned on scattered regions of the country. In terms of marital status, the highest number of respondents are single with 73%, and 55% cohabit with their parents and siblings. 64% of the respondents do not have dependents. This is explained by the highest rate, by the highest percentage of respondents that is single. On the findings of the study, let us look into the level of perceived stress. The level of perceived stress is moderate with a group score of 20.4. So the identified stressors are financial issues and concerns, work-related issues and concerns, people in the workplace, family concerns, COVID-19 pandemic, and 1% on psychological issues. On the level of mental health, the group score is 80.96, and that is interpreted as good. The source of motivation identified were family goals, personal goals, altruistic goals, and spiritual goals. On the level of psychological resilience, the group score is 3.66, and this is interpreted as normal. So, 67% of the respondents are classified under normal resilience, 22% are classified under high resilience, and 12% were identified to be of low resilience. The effect of stress on mental health, with the statistical tool used, 14.2% of the variation in mental health is explained by perceived stress. So for every 1 unit increase in perceived stress, mental health decreases by 1.107. On the other hand, the effect of mental health on psychological resilience is presented as 12.3% of the variation in psychological resilience is explained by mental health. For every 1 unit increase in mental health, psychological resilience increases by 0.019. So summarizing the analysis of results, with a controllable level of stress, people display good mental health and they are motivated to live life with all the challenges they face. In times of disruptions, they can easily adapt to the abrupt changes brought about by these disruptions and subsequently function normally or even thrive despite the sudden changes and threats. In this sense, psychological resilience is seen as a dynamic process or mechanism of positive adaptation in the context of adversity. In conclusion, the perceived level of stress of the respondents is moderate with a score of 20.4. The perceived level of mental health is good with a group score of 80.96. And the perceived level of psychological resilience is normal with a score of 3.66. Stress is a significant predictor of mental health. Hence, for every 1 unit increase in perceived stress, mental health decreases by 1.107. Mental health is a significant predictor of psychological resilience. Hence, for every 1 unit increase in mental health, psychological resilience also increases by 0.019. On the recommendations of the study, a replication of the study to consider other predictors of psychological resilience, as well as to consider the PNP, the Philippine National Police, and the Bureau of Jail Management Penology, or BJMP, as a representative sample of public safety officers. Second, to capacitate public safety officers in terms of stress management skills by developing programs to enhance their well-being and mental health to become highly resilient, thereby efficient in the performance of their mandate. Also, the third is the creation of the Psychological Resilience Unit in the Public Safety Agency's national headquarters, regional offices, and training centers, which is primarily tasked to provide mental health service. And last recommendation is the formulation of a comprehensive mental health service program, which is an organized set of activities designed to promote the well-being of public safety officers. On the program of action for the proposed creation of Psychological Resilience Unit, first is to establish the Psychological Resilience Unit, which is a mental health service facility primarily tasked to provide mental health-related services to public safety officers. This facility may be organized in a centralized manner where mental health activities and programs are designed and funded from the national headquarters down to the regional offices. Second, capacitate the Psychological Resilience Unit with regular plantilla positions qualified mental health service providers as prescribed by various laws such as RA 9258, RA 11036, and RA 10029. Third, to develop a 5-year health service program anchored on Ambition Natin 2040, presenting activities to be conducted on a year-round basis, which can be used as a basis for funding. The program may be a long-term of 5 years, but annually evaluated to provide baseline data for continual improvement. On the proposed Comprehensive Mental Health Service Program, the Comprehensive Mental Health Service Program is an organized set of activities designed to promote the well-being of public safety officers through the development of competencies required in keeping a good mental health and psychological resilience to ensure efficacy in the performance of their mandate. So this is anchored on American School Counselors Association model, which advocate the idea that there should be no student left behind. In application to the public safety officers, it can be said that programs should follow the principle of no public officer left behind. I would like to present briefly the contents of the proposed comprehensive mental health service program. The first service is individual inventory, which includes the gathering of personal information about clients through the use of standard forms to provide a reference for designing programs and activities. The second is information, providing pertinent information to clients on matters that may affect their psychological, mental, and psychological functioning. Third is counseling. This is a set of organized activities that involves non-judgmental listening and understanding of one's present concerns or issues in life to help the individual come up with an intelligent course of action and thereby free himself or herself from the problematic issues at hand. So these activities can be provided by mental health service providers such as registered guidance counselors, registered psychologists, registered psychometricians as facilitators, and all public safety officers as participants. Another service is the assessment and appraisal. This is a systematic evaluation of the client's mental and psychological functioning through the use of standardized tests. So this is best facilitated during the second quarter of the year. Another is consultation or the collaboration of mental health service providers and other helping individuals and agencies to respond to queries regarding issues related to mental health. So with the pandemic, face-to-face transactions have been minimized, and even consultations can now be done online. The next service is prevention and wellness. This is composed of organized set of activities designed for the promotion of mental health among clients. So it can be conducted through group dynamics and workshops in small groups at the regional level. It can also be conducted by the national level through centralized webinars. Another service is referral. In this way, clients are assisted in obtaining the services from other people or agencies who are in a better position to offer the kind assistance needed by the clients. So partners here are mental health providers and other agencies. It can be done by establishing linkages with other mental health providers and agencies such as the Department of Health, the Philippine Mental Health Association, crisis centers, rehabilitation centers, Department of Social Work and Development, medical doctors, even priests and other spiritual counselors. Another is the follow-up. This is checking on the recovery status of clients who have undergone counseling and or other mental health interventions. And research and evaluation, a systematic conduct of generating knowledge from discoveries through research. So the objective of this is to provide baseline data for the evaluation and improvement of mental health service program. The proposed comprehensive mental health service program is a baseline program that may still be enriched through brainstorming and or workshop among mental health service providers in the uniform service. So these are the references that I use in the completion of the study. At this point, I would like to acknowledge the Philippine Public Safety College for providing the researcher with a scholarship that led to the completion of a master's degree in public safety administration, the course to which this research was submitted as in completion to the academic requirements of the course. Thank you very much. That ends my presentation.
Thank you very much, Marilyn, and thank you for joining us for it being so, I don't know, is it late or early in the morning, but thank you anyway for joining us and staying up to be able to give us the presentation. Very, very interesting indeed. We do have one question, if you don't mind. The question is really about what are the key recommendations to performance management with the proposed mental health program? So overall, the comment being that it, of course, it's important to develop and implement programs, but the measurement to ensure how the program is progressing, closing of certain actions and identifying improvement opportunities or process of continual improvement is also very important. So what are your thoughts on the recommendations for performance management, especially with regards to mental health programs like you're discussing?
Thank you, Mr. Kyle. One of the services, if you have noticed, I want to go back to that. The last service in the comprehensive program, in the comprehensive mental health service program is actually research and evaluation. So I said earlier that the program is a long-term for 5 years, but it should be evaluated every year or annually so as to determine the performance of the effectiveness of the services within the year. And this can be done through research and evaluation. So I am recommending that anyone who does the same should conduct research and evaluation every year to determine the lapses, to determine the weakness of the services or the program, and to identify specific interventions that would improve the effectiveness of the comprehensive mental health program. I hope I answered the question.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Marilyn. Thanks for joining us and have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
All right, welcome back, everybody, after a quick break. And so now we have Joe. Joe's back with us again later in the morning, of course, with some fresh caffeine and coffee and all ready to go. So Joe's back. And so, Joe, over to you. Thanks again for joining us. And I'll stop sharing.
Okay, so let me start sharing. Just trying, there we go, into full mode. Okay. So, hello everyone. This is Joe Lightman. I'm the Vice President of the American chapter of TIEMS and also the Executive Director of a new organization called the University of California Disaster Resilience Network. And that's what I'd like to share with you today. And apologies, I still haven't gotten that screensaver in the background for the conference. Anyhow, what I would like to cover today is just to tell you a little bit about the network, what we do, how we're governed and managed, what's coming up, and how you can participate with us. So a little bit of background on the University of California system. It's a massive educational and research enterprise with 10 campuses, 6 medical centers, and 3 national laboratories in the U.S. We have 70,000 researchers, 285,000 students, and 2 million alumni. Those researchers produce 10% of the research output in the United States. So it's quite a significant system. Now, what we're trying to do in this system is basically to break down some silos and make the knowledge and talent in this system a little bit more accessible, particularly focusing on questions of disaster resilience. So right now, there's no way of efficiently either harnessing or even understanding the talent that exists across disciplines and geographies to mitigate, address, and recover from disasters. We saw this problem many years ago and found a solution after the earthquake in Haiti. The University of California developed the Haiti Initiative, and that allowed people from all of the academic locations in the university to work together to help Haiti recover from the earthquake way back in 2010. So I was working in Haiti myself at the time, and I came across this initiative. I thought it was very good. And I started talking with the founder of the initiative and said, why can't we do more? Why can't we really address a broader set of issues rather than one disaster in one country, kind of on an ad hoc basis? Well, it took a few years, but the idea finally came to fruition. And last July, we were able to launch this platform, this disaster resilient network that allows us to bring talent together throughout this massive system, match the resources that are in the system with external needs, support research, train the next generation of leaders in disaster resilience, and allow researchers to better contribute to resilience studies. The mission of the organization is to mobilize this talent across the University of California system to help contribute to responding to threats that pose an existential risk to society. So really the big disasters, climate change, and other anthropogenic crises that face our society. And the initial focus when I talk about society is California itself, because the communities in this state where I'm talking to you from are challenged by certainly climate change and related wildfires and droughts, but also seismic events and pandemic, certainly, and other shocks and stresses. We strategically decided to start with the state because it's the state that helps to fund and support the university, but we have expertise that has a national and global reach. So the network goes beyond the borders of the state. So what are we doing? Well, we decided to organize ourselves around 5 areas of activity. Our first deliverable was a very simple piece of work, but very powerful. And that was to create an expertise portal that allowed us to identify who is doing what when it comes to disaster resilience across all of the different facilities of the university, and to identify those centers of excellence as well. So when you go to the portal, you can type in what you're interested in: emergency management, climate change, wildfires, whatever. And up will pop the researchers across the system who are doing that kind of work, their specialization, and how to get in touch with them, as well as the centers of excellence. So it facilitates access to that expertise for faculty, students, and outside partners as well who might want to use the resources of the university. The second deliverable that we're working on is to incubate innovative research in the area of disaster resilience. So the idea is to be able to provide seed grants and to promote knowledge sharing events in the area of disaster resilience, and to bring together people who might not normally work together, whether it's because they're in different disciplines or because they're working on different campuses or in different facilities. And we started this with a very tactical choice of wildfires because they pose such an important threat to the communities in California. And we were able to forge a partnership with the largest natural reserve system in the world to conduct research on controlled burns and to be able to model what resilient forests should look like and how to get to that resiliency. We just received a $1.5 million grant to get this work going from the Moore Foundation. And we're now moving on to incubate some innovative research around climate resilience. And that we hope will influence about $100 million that the state of California has made available this year to the university to do research on that subject. Our third area and our fourth area are related, and they have to do with training the next generation of leadership in the area more broadly of resilience. So what we've done first is to look for applied learning opportunities for students and staff within the university system to work on disaster resilience. And we've been able to create a disaster resilience fellowship program and internships with the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services and the American Red Cross, and hopefully soon with the World Bank as well. The fourth area that we're working on is training and workforce development. And the ultimate goal here is to be able to create a program in resilience studies. And we're starting this off with a system-wide course that will focus on addressing concurrent and cascading crises. It will draw on lectures from 7, I think, of our campuses, as well as outside lecturers. And it's going to be offered in January. Just was in a meeting this morning planning this out and nailing down some of the details of the course, but it's been approved and it's been funded to reach out to students across the UC system. And then finally, our last deliverable is to develop partnerships. And these are partners both within and outside the university system. We have developed so far partnerships with the American Red Cross, with something called the International Science Reserve, which seeks to mobilize academic talent globally to respond to crises. And within the university system with our natural reserve system. And then finally, we're looking at partnerships with other university systems. And our first example of that is the University of Chile system. Chile and California mirror each other very much in terms of resilience challenges and ecosystems. So we thought it would be useful to work with Chilean colleagues to create a partnership where we can do joint research and exchange faculty and students. So these are just some of the logos of our partners. And this is our basic structure. So on the left, you've got all of the shocks and stresses that will confront California, the US, and globally. Then we've got our approach, those 5 deliverables that I mentioned. And these are all structured under the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, which calls on the world to focus on identifying and understanding risk, risk governance and management, risk reduction, and preparedness and resilient recovery. So those are our guiding principles or guiding framework, if you will, for doing this work so that we are consistent with the global agreement on disaster risk reduction represented by the Sendai framework. So just a little bit of nuts and bolts. We've tried to put together a robust governance structure where we have representation of our various academic units, the student body, and the Office of the President of the university. We have, as our lead advisor, the former Secretary of Homeland Security and the former President of the University of California, a woman named Janet Napolitano. And this council is represented on a day-to-day basis by an executive committee that looks at and oversees our operations on a regular basis. And then we have a 7-member advisory board of external experts, people who are well-versed in philanthropy and potential partners. And they provide kind of a high-level guidance on our strategies, on fundraising, and developing new programs and partnerships. Then at the level of each of the campuses and academic units, we have committees that organize local activities that relate to disaster resilience and elect a representative to the council. This is all supported by a small team of people, a faculty director who's based at UC Santa Barbara, myself as executive director, and then some people who help us with communications, information technology, and fundraising. So this is a graphic representation of how we're organized in terms of the relationship between these various governance bodies. It seems maybe like a lot for a small new organization, but it's been very helpful in building support and legitimacy for something that's really never been tried before at the level of the breadth and scope of our initiative. This is just a quick list of our leadership on different campuses. And again, with Dr. Napolitano as our lead advisor. So what's coming up? What's next for this initiative? It's just been around for a little more than a year. We've raised a few $1 million in resources. We've gotten a legitimacy throughout the university system, and we've started a number of activities. What we want to do is really make that expertise portal more operational. We want to expand the number of themes that we're incubating for research. We'd like to put together fundings to enable academic researchers to rapidly respond to disasters and be a part of understanding what has happened and developing solutions. If you are familiar with academia, it can take months to years to get a grant. And after a disaster, really, that sort of funding is needed in a matter of days. We hope to produce actionable research, starting with that work on wildfires, and expand our fellowship program for service learning activities. We hope to expand the course that we're offering into a series of courses that can eventually become a program in resilience studies. And then we hope to develop a few new internal and external partnerships during the course of this fiscal year, which goes from July to June for us. Just a quick status update. We've been able to increase our resources by 6-fold in our second year of operation. We got that important grant from the Moore Foundation. We've consolidated a partnership with the American Red Cross. We have our course approved and financed. We have a very active partnership with the University of Chile. And we've just concluded a high-level workshop with DARPA on emergency management, where we had a number of high-level participants, including the current and former management of FEMA. And we're working on a workshop to help orient that $100 million of climate research funding that the state of California is providing to the university system. So finally, how can you participate? Join our mailing list for regular updates. If you are based in California and you're near one of these campuses, you can join the campus-based committee. If you need to access expertise, use the expertise portal. If you are interested in one of the areas where we're incubating research, there's an opportunity for partnership. If you're a researcher in the system, you might seek that rapid response funding or a fellowship. We hope that we can open up that online course to people who are doing online learning offered by the university more broadly. So it's not just for the students on our campuses. And then we're open to new partnerships. So there's our website, there's our logo, and back to you, Kyle, for any questions and comments.
All right. Thanks a lot, Joe. Very interesting. And so what do you look for in terms of your partnerships? I know that we have a lot of sort of agencies internationally that are sort of, joining in the conference this week. And so what are some of the things that you want to get out of a partnership? Is it only, I don't know, for example, nationally? Is it internationally? Where do sort of your interests drive your partnership network?
Well, I think internationally, we're looking at two things. We want to develop a series of twinning arrangements with other university systems. So we have this initial partnership with the University of Chile system, and we've developed in the past, and we're trying to resuscitate a partnership with the State University of Haiti. So we're looking for university systems that have done work on emergency management, on resilience, on disaster risk management. And then we're looking for partnerships with international organizations where we can share experience and better connect the work that's being done within the university system with the needs of those organizations. Nationally, we have that partnership with the American Red Cross, and we're hoping to develop something with FEMA as well. We're also looking at working with universities in the U.S. Tulane University, for example, has an excellent disaster studies program. And there is the whole Converge set of universities that work on issues of disasters. So we want to reach out to them. And then we're looking at local level partnerships with the communities around the university campuses that should be benefiting more from the knowledge and the capacity that's in the university just next door to them. Many of our communities are exposed to disaster risks, and the university, I think, can play a greater role in helping them both be prepared and to cope with and reduce the risks that they face.
All right, very interesting. And there is a question, though. Is the program available to persons within the Caribbean, such as Trinidad and Tobago?
We would, I think, start off by looking at the potential for partnerships, for example, with the University of the West Indies and their disaster center, possibly with some of the intergovernmental organizations in the Caribbean that work on disasters. I think in the OECS, there's one of them as well.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Joe. It's very interesting to see some of the work that you're doing, and we look forward to following that as things move along. So really look forward to that.
Stay tuned. Thank you. And I'll answer some of the questions in the chat.
Yeah, there's some questions in the chat if you just want.
Yeah.
I was just reading them, but if you can, answer them yourself and then type a response, would be great.
Sure, I'll do that. I've got a now for another event, but thank you, Kyle, and good luck with the rest of the conference.
All right. Thank you very much.